The top free application on the Apple Store. It's a game called Color Switch.
It's the hottest thing to hit the App Store since Flappy Bird.
With over 20 million downloads.
In 2016, a parking attendant built a game in 30 minutes that took over the world. 300 million downloads and #1 in 100 countries, almost overnight, but at its peak, the original game vanished. A massive legal battle for the rights turned a billion-dollar legacy into a nightmare. This is how Color Switch was ruined. Before creating Color Switch, David Reichelt was living a double life. By day, he was a parking attendant and pool cleaner in Los Angeles, earning $12 an hour just to keep his car from being repossessed. But by night, he was a professional magician and a member of the world-famous Magic Castle in Hollywood. But let's be honest, that magic touch didn't translate to apps immediately. In fact, David's early career was a graveyard of unoriginality. Between 2011 and 2015, he released 40 different games, but almost all of them were blatant clones of hits like Super Mario and Doodle Jump. He wasn't trying to change the industry, he was just chasing the trends, trying to catch lightning in a bottle by copying what already worked. The problem? The App Store is a brutal place for copies. Every single one of them was a ghost town. But David had a different perspective on stress than most developers. Before he ever touched a line of code, he was a combat medic in the Iraq War. In 2005, David was on the ground in Iraq, where stress wasn't about a crashing app or a low download count. It was about life and death. He was nearly blown up twice while serving, an experience that gave him a specialized kind of focus. While other creators were mourning their failed games, David was performing an autopsy on his. He treated every one of those 40 failed clones like a diagnostic test. He wasn't failing, he was just.
It was just a constant cycle of trying something, failing, trying something new, failing, and just doing that for 2.5 years until I got to the point to where I am now.
By late 2015, David was at his breaking point. He was over $80,000 in debt and living off a credit card that was moments away from being declined. He decided to give it one last shot. Not with months of coding, but with a no-code tool called Buildbox. He didn't spend weeks. He didn't even spend an hour. In just 30 minutes, David dragged a simple circle and 4 rotating lines into the editor. He hit play, and for the first time in 40 attempts, the game felt alive. He had just built the prototype for Color Switch, but here is the irony that should have made this game impossible for him.
He's colorblind.
In less than a year, Color Switch became the fastest game in history to reach 75 million downloads, trailing only behind giants like Pokémon Go. David Reichelt went from dodging debt collectors to sitting at the very top of the world's charts. He had officially conquered the App Store. It wasn't just a hit in the United States, the UK, and Canada. The game exploded across Europe, led by a massive, dedicated player base in Spain. The fever spread rapidly through Mexico and Brazil, before dominating the high-density mobile markets of India, Indonesia, and the Philippines. This wasn't just a hit, it was a total cultural takeover. Millions of players were sharing their high scores and turning a 30-minute prototype into a global obsession that dominated the screens of every continent. David didn't just win, he inadvertently births a new genre, hyper-casual. Suddenly, the biggest studios in the world stopped looking for the next Clash of Clans and started hunting for the next 30-minute miracle. But as the mobile market pivoted to copy his success, the miracle was about to face its first real enemy, because when you build a gold mine in 30 minutes, you attract more than just players, you attract the vultures. David wasn't just looking for a partner, he was looking for a shield. By joining forces with Fortify Games, the project gained the corporate muscle it needed to finally clear the field. Fortify brought the marketing budget and the legal power to push back against the swarm of clones that were burying the original vision. But Fortify's involvement wasn't just about protection, it was about relentless expansion. Their resources transformed Color Switch from a viral trend into a massive content engine. Weekly updates and dozens of new game modes turned the simple mechanics into a permanent fixture on the global charts. But as the scale grew, the game's original soul was about to face its biggest test yet. In the world of mobile gaming, success is usually measured in downloads. But for Color Switch, the true cost of success was about to become a nightmare. On the 22nd of December, 2017. The past 2 years have been an amazing ride for Color Switch, and we are so grateful for all of our loyal fans and players. As of the 22nd of December, the Color Switch app has been taken down by our former publisher because they are holding our game hostage. We've worked very hard to avoid this situation, and we are very sorry to let you, our players, down. Color Switch, which had over 200 million downloads, simply vanished. If you searched for it on the App Store, it wasn't there. If you had it on your phone, the update stopped. One of the biggest games in history had been wiped from the face of the earth. This began very tiring months-long conflicts between David and his team, and Fortify. The battle for Color Switch wasn't just fought in the App Store, it was fought in the Eastern District of California. Color Switch Productions sued Fortify Games to get their intellectual property back. The stakes were astronomical. At its peak, Color Switch was being valued at nearly $100 million in potential brand revenue. But here is where the story takes a dark turn into the fine print of contract law. David argued that he was the sole creator and that Fortify was just a middleman. But Fortify fought back with a brutal defense. They claimed that because they had built the actual updates, added the new game modes, and managed the servers, they owned the version of the game that the world was playing. They pointed to a specific clause in their agreement, the work-for-hire trap. But David's biggest mistake wasn't just the code. It was the geography. The judge eventually dismissed the US case entirely because of a forum selection clause. This meant that if David wanted to sue Fortify, he couldn't do it in California. He had to do it in Dubai. For a solo developer, fighting a multi-million-dollar corporation in a foreign court was a death sentence for the original app. The case was closed in 2019, officially sentencing the original Color Switch to death. However, not everything was lost. While the lawsuit was still in a critical situation, to prepare for the inevitable, David and his team worked from scratch what could be remade of the lost game, and to not leave the players without the game they loved, a new company was founded, Color Switch Phoenix, with the new version of the game officially returning on May of 2018. However, players immediately felt the sudden change. Many fans of the game had mixed to negative sentiment compared to the original, with many users considering the original 2015 to 2017 version superior. And now the current state of the game being basically in shambles of what it once was, with font styles completely different now, and the introduction of a VIP mode for $9 just to get 5 bulls and a game mode for a week, which shows how desperate the game is for money now, as well as the failure of Color Switch 2. Which was supposed to be some way of making Color Switch 3D, and hyped up in the masses, just to be completely removed and unnoticed recently, and the community essentially being abandoned with no interest in the game anymore, no response from the developers, and the Reddit being inactive. As for Fortify, they ended up ceasing operations. They no longer work in video game production. This just leaves us with a game that had a bright future, but corporate greed and the law ruined it. Make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss any future uploads. Thanks for watching.